This is Manso, the orphan baby bear that hit the headlines on one of the most heartwarming stories there is. Today we are talking about the pilot that raised a bear. In a very unlikely pairing, it makes you wonder why Disney haven't already made a movie about this plot, but there we are. Personnel at the Oreshkovo airfield in Russia's Kaluga region found little Manso, a baby bear cub near their airfield in 2016. Thinking that this little baby's mother must have been shot by hunters, they felt that they couldn't leave this baby bear to its own means as it would likely die in the wild. This base was about 124 miles from Moscow, so it's in a pretty remote area of the world. So, as any good pilot would, and with instinctive training, you pick up the little bear and adopt him as your own. Whilst a whole host of personnel have helped to take care of this bear, the main person involved is a pilot named Andrei Ivanov. This is the story of friendship between man and bear. The name Manso means a bear in Altai, a Turkic language in the Kaluga region where the pilots are located. So, just in case you wondered how he got this name, his name literally means a bear. So yeah, pretty inventive stuff. And just to be abundantly clear, this guy is hella cute and I just want to take him as my own and he'd be cool and we'd be best pals. I mean, look at him, look how cute he is. Or was, because this was 2016 mind you, he's grown up a bit since then, but at the time, he is literally just a little baby teddy bear. And yes, despite the fact that he's nice and cute now, we just have to hope that he manages to build up enough of a relationship with his handlers in order not to let his animal instincts kick in and eat them all when he grows up. But you know what, we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit there. In the first year of having him, they noted that Mansa was always tired, but they couldn't quite understand why. Given that the bear naturally hibernates, a cub without its mother struggled to grasp the concept of what hibernation actually was. So the only answer was to pet him and allow little Mansa to suck Andrei's hand until he fell asleep, like a baby would. Then going into hibernation that weekend, this was pretty genius stuff. This little bear could have been a pilot himself, maybe with just a little bit of training and with some guidance from his handlers, but you know what, maybe they don't do pilot helmets in bear size. Obviously, this would not be a long-term solution as they knew that this bear would eventually grow up and they needed to make sure that somebody that could actually take care of a grizzly bear was able to do so. So they needed someone to look after it, such as a zoo. But the problem is, no zoo would have him. However, a local bear reserve did come forward and said that they would take care of Mansa. So this seemed like a natural fit. Try and get Mansa into a bear reserve so he can try and reserve his bear-like tendencies as far as possible and give him somewhat of a normal life. So they agreed, they handed over Mansa and thought all was good. Trusting their word, they handed over young Mansa to the official. But despite repeated requests to find out where the bear was or how he was doing, they never gave them an answer. However, they eventually found out that Mansa wasn't taken to a bear reserve at all. He was taken instead to a bear baiting station, where he was chained up and held in horrible conditions. He was basically tied up and used to train hunting dogs. So those little fuckers, I don't care if I get demonetized, I'm just going to say it, they're absolute So, like any adoptive parents would, they decided to put together a plan to free Mansa from these horrible conditions. The pilots decided to enact Operation Freemancer. I don't actually think it had a name, but if it needed one, this little bear cub they raised from being young needed to make sure he was free, and to be a bear basically. The way they did it was that they came forward and pretended that they had dogs that they wanted to train, so they basically rented out Mansa in which to train with him, but the reality of this was that they were best buds, and as soon as Mansa realised that his rescuers were there, he gave them a big hug and they took him home. It was at this moment that they realised that despite their best efforts to try and give Mansa a normal life as far as possible, they couldn't trust many people with him, if anyone. So they realised that in order to make sure they can give this bear the best life it can, they had to raise Mansa themselves. Despite the fact that the name Mansa means a bear, he was their bear. Andrei, amongst other pilots, decided that this little guy needed someone to help raise him, so they decided to adopt him. With the help and advice of local biologists, they housed Mansa in his own cordoned-off area on the airfield to allow him space to live out his bear life. Whilst he was in a bad state when he was rescued, he has thankfully managed to make a full recovery and he is now a fully grown, fully healthy bear. And if you want to actually see more of this bear, there is actually an entire YouTube channel dedicated to videos of Mansa by the guys that are helping raise him now, which is pretty awesome, and I'll leave a link in the description, so check it out if you want to, because this guy is pretty cool. What's even better about this is that the pilots acted quickly enough to make sure that Mansa wasn't injured too badly to have any permanent damage, as many of these bear baiters actually declaw or de-teeth the bears that they have, but thankfully they hadn't got round to doing that yet with Mansa, so our little friend still has his teeth and still has his claws. The enclosure they made him was in the aerodrome at the airfield they were based at, but the enclosure itself was built with an electric fence. Not only to stop anyone from getting to the bear, but given the fact that we are now dealing with a fully grown bear, to stop the bear getting out to potentially hurt anyone else. And yes, despite the fact that these guys are, as far as we're aware, best buddies, you can never be too sure, and I think it's worth being a little bit cautious just to be safe. While the idea of raising a bear is a noble one in this situation, the reality is that this whole thing is not cheap to do, as it costs about $450 a month to look after Mansa. Despite the fact that he was a small cute cub when they first found him, he is now a fully grown bear that weighs 440 pounds and stands almost 6 feet tall, eating 45 pounds of food a day. As well as going over to the YouTube channel, you can also go over and donate if you'd like to, so that link will be down below as well, and feel free to watch all the videos of this awesome bear, Mansa. If you guys like that video, here's another one just like it. I'll see you guys in the next video. Fantastic.